up with it, and I don't have very many jack stands. So let's sweep the floor, crawl under here, and see what we're working with. So here's what we got going on. I took a transmission mount off a 4L60E from one of my LS motors. We drilled the holes and have the bolts basically going up into this transmission, so that way we can run a rubber mount here. We have the factory cross member, which is tough to see, bolted to the chassis. Now essentially what we gotta do is weld a bar that goes from here to this, so that way we can bolt this in. And we're currently trying to figure out how to use some square tubing to weld off of that and make it stronger than it was originally. But we're making progress on this transmission mount. And we need to worry about that torque arm that my idiot self cut in half.
It's all good. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, but that's the least of our worries right now. Safety first, kids.
Safety third or something like that.
Alright, so we got our tacked together plates for our transmission mount here. We're just kind of discussing the best approach to prevent this thing from pulling and twisting, and then we go to put it in the car and it doesn't fit.
So in this case, our best plan would be to bring it up one side, come up the other side, then come across the back. Then we'll flip this. We're going to weld the back side, flip it again, and quick weld the other side before it cools. In theory, and in most cases, that usually works out so that it cools evenly. Sometimes it'll pull a little bit, but you know, a little bit of prevention is way better than, you know, just leaving it going. I know for a fact if we just weld this side, it's going to walk up, as it cools. And you know, for like anything tubular, if you want to keep your part from not doing this or this or this or this, what you do is you weld in clock positions. And you start at noon and go to 3, then start at 6 and go to 9, and then close them up. And if you do that, as that is pulling, it'll magically, it will stay straight level.
We are running into a little bit of issues with our welder. There's a little ceramic piece in there for where the gas comes through and it's broken. So I don't think the gas is acting right. It sounds terrible. It's probably going to weld terrible, but we'll give her a shot. Oh, the gas definitely acted weird there.
Yeah, so the gas, instead of it coming out in a concentrated spot, it is probably, you know, whirling and
weird,
yeah, it's going all different directions.
Yeah, it did great on both ends, and then starting.
Now, when you welded these, were you pushing or were you pulling?
I pushed, and then I pulled on that one.
So the trick to getting this to weld good is pushing. Yep. Anybody can weld good with a good welder. Not everybody can weld with a broken one. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the difference. That's what makes a welder. Yep, that's what it wants. I mean, that's as good as you're gonna get it. So. Oh.
They're not welding gloves. I don't know where they went. My terrible welding skills. There's where we're kind of fighting the gas acting weird when we were pulling the weld. So pushing it. Made it come out alright. Let that cool off and get her bolted in. You know? It's not stupid if it works. We have our makeshift throttle cable here that we robbed half of one from a square body. This is the factory one. I cut the original bracket off for the throttle linkage since they weren't long enough, and just basically cut it to how I need it to fit into the original Camaro. I'll flip it like this and weld it to the back of that bracket. So we should have a working throttle. And this is just a little go-kart brake throttle cable holder thing that I found on Amazon for 13 cents. And we got a throttle. This thing is fully set up from the inside of the car. Now we just finished up the throttle cable. Go ahead, hit that sucker full throttle. Let off. Effortlessly. I like it. Go ahead and hop over here though, because I'm trying to figure out how we can get an intercooler up in this thing. Now, I flipped the intercooler upside down and there's a perfect pocket on both sides. It's like 4 inches, so I should be able to sneak my 3-inch intercooler pipe through there, take a 3-inch hole saw, drill down there and wiggle, finagle up to that. I don't really like that, but unfortunately I can't clock the turbo down there without that elbow running into a bunch of stuff. An aftermarket one, or if I made one, I could fix that so it doesn't go clear up there, which I might. But for now, that'll do the job. Same as over here. We're going to sneak through there. Actually was able to get the battery pushed over, and I should be able to sneak right between the battery, right up to that, and send that boost right into there. Make a lot of power. Probably not, but you know, we are running into a little bit of issues. But this intercooler is actually like the same width as from here to here, and then I have the inlet and outlet on it. So I'm gonna try and wiggle this up here. We'll get it into place and figure out what we're gonna do for some brackets to hold her up there. As my buddy Jeff was saying, I really need to get like a piece of cardboard to start checking stuff off the box, because intercooler mounted. Oh yeah. He also taught me a little trick of rounding the edges. I've, I guess, been too lazy to do it, but I'm liking it. Made it so we can unbolt from the top. Intercooler can drop down through the bottom. We're gonna have to throw a little bit of support, I think, from here to that bracket, since I had to eliminate the main structure that went down in my way. And this is kind of what we're working with for a radiator. I'm thinking I'm just going to have to cut out that whole support from the factory radiator and build something else, because she's getting pretty tight in there. Well, I'm sure that's not concerning at all. I'll do the right thing and see where she leaks, because we're going to definitely need these where we're going. Getting ready to fill our trans fluid. Figured I should go ahead and mount our trans cooler real quick. This area was originally where the catalytic converter went in these cars, and there's a ton of room here to mount this thing and give it the airspace it needs to pull air through this to help keep this transmission nice and cool. Would have liked to see a little bit bigger cooler, but this is what we had laying around, so gonna try it out. We'll throw a gauge on it later once we get driving this thing down the road and see how she does. But as you can see, I got some tabs here bolted to all 4 corners, and I'm gonna get the grinder, clean up the floor just a little bit, and we'll press it up there where we need it, tack it in, and weld that sucker in. Get our lines, make sure those are zip tied up out of the way so they don't get wrapped in the drive shaft or something goofy like that. We should be set down here for everything under the car. Got our drive shaft all bolted in tight, that's good. Gonna leave the original exhaust because, you know, it's just added work to remove that. I'll seriously get that cut off at some point, but right now we're worrying about getting this car drivable. You kind of see our transmission mount. We used our original transmission cross member here. I just had to weld some plates to it and a makeshift transmission mount to go to that. Our torque arm mount, we welded all off to that, to the factory torque arm. This is actually getting replaced at some point down the line with a new rear end as well as a tubular cross member. The torque arm will be tubular as well. It's just a whole lot stronger. You know we're starting to get serious when we're putting funnels in the motor. Time to break the bank with trans fluid, because it takes like 3 gallons to get most of the trans filled up if you pull the valve body. They're like 35 bucks a piece. Oh, this one's gonna hurt. You can kind of see the smoke in here. That light magically came on and it started smoking. Alright, maybe I'll turn the heater off. About the only thing in that general area. Maybe there's a stock computer over there. I have no idea. But let's fire up the battery charger and see if we can get this thing to start. Well, she's wanting to move. Let's double check the fluid on her. Definitely need more. We also have to fill our transmission cooler and the crazy long lines I have on it, so she's probably going to take all of these 3 gallons, if I were to guess. What was that? That could have been bad. I don't know if it was running away or what. Alright. Found the problem. Well, I'm not sure what's leaking oil, but I did figure out my throttle situation on why she just started heading for the side of the building. Somebody, I don't know who, got real happy with the hammer and hit the firewall, which in turn pushed the gas pedal into the brake. So when you press the brake pedal down super hard, it also hits the gas. Yeah, who'd have thought? So I gotta go in there and beat the floor back down and move the gas pedal back into position. And here's what I'm talking about. So when you hit the gas, so when you hit the brake pedal, it touches the gas. You can kind of see there, that's the bracket that got bent from me bashing the floor. So if I take a hammer to that, it should hopefully put that back into position to where if I hit the brakes, it doesn't also hit the gas. Got nervous there for a second.
raw oil coming out. So how'd the pedal feel?
What's that?
How'd the pedal feel?
Oh, it feels aggressive.
Yeah.
You feel every motor vibration through.
Yeah.
Hardly any brakes, and I don't have any power steering fluid in it, so I couldn't steer nothing.
Oh, you don't even have the turbo connect either.
No.
So that was just pure motor.
Yeah. Well, she did it. Leaking oil like crazy, so I literally cannot find where it's leaking. Oil pan's dry, the whole side of the block's dry, and it's like leaking right here. It's almost as if maybe an oil pressure port that's vertical. I just don't know. I don't. Coming from right there, which is good. I was worried that the pan may have gotten damaged, but it's coming from directly under this. I guess we will put her back up in the air and investigate further. So along with the oil leak, which I did discover is between our power steering and our vacuum pump here. Essentially there's a seal I need to replace there. Our new suspension came in, so I'm going to toss that in. Basically just new coil springs up front, rated for a hell of a lot more weight than what factory offers. And a new one that I discovered is the transmission is leaking somewhere. She's got quite the puddle under her. So I need to figure that one out, but I'm going to start with the oil leak first. So here's what we're talking about. We got our power steering, our vacuum pump, and then this is our front cover to the front of the engine. There's 4 bolts that go around that hold the power steering pump to this. I've never taken one apart, so I'm hoping that shaft slides out because there's a seal that goes right there. Last nut off, so that way it'll come out. And like so. Maybe. Trying to leave the lines on just to save me time. There we go. So that's what it was. It just looks like a keyed shaft. Now, let's see what the seal looks like. There's literally what the seal is. It's sitting in chunks in there. Now, how did that happen? I don't know. Probably the fact that this motor has at least sat for 2 years for me, probably 10 years in total. And when you don't have any oil or anything going by seals, they dry up, and that's what happens. So let's get a pick, pull that seal out. Hopefully it matches that one, and we will have our oil problem fixed. And that be our problem right there. You see, some of the seal is there, some of it is gone. So there's also like chunks of gasket maker in there, almost like they tried to just put gasket maker around as a temporary solution, but we'll pop that new seal in, get that bolted back into place, and we'll be good on the oil leak. We can move on to front suspension. Well, I'm glad that was a lot easier than I was expecting. Trans leak, I took a look under there. Pan is somewhat dry. Usually the pan gaskets like to leak. So a couple things we could check is our transmission lines. I'm guessing that's probably what it is, where we put our AN fittings into the case. They might just need tightened up a little bit, hopefully solve that problem, and then we can get on the suspension finally, because that's what we really need to get this thing out of the garage officially. Also, I might have a major problem. So, big problem here I'm seeing is, one, our bent sway bar, not a big deal, but our steering crossover, if it turns that way, I don't know if it's going to clear that oil pan or not. We could potentially get in trouble, so I'll have to jack this up in the air, turn the wheels left and right. Something I never thought to bother looking or checking. I just thought as long as the oil pan was above the cross member there, we would be alright, but clearly that might not be the case. And if we have to do that, we might have to look at some sort of drop pitman arm or something. We'll worry about that a little bit later. Making some headroom on the suspension. Basically, there's a single bolt up there. You loosen that, and then everything falls out and about rips the brake caliper off. That's okay, because these brakes actually need some help. I'm going to replace that hose anyways. She has probably seen her better days, plus sitting forever, those things swell on the inside, cause all sorts of problems that we don't need. Now I'm going to get the pry bar in there, and that spring should hopefully go somewhere against that wall and not towards me, hopefully. Let's see what happens. Oh. Well, it makes it even easier when the spring's broke in half. That's a guy wonder if that happened when... Yep, something like that. There we go. 100 factory springs, from what I've searched, approximately 100 to 150 pounds per inch, I believe. So we don't need those where we're going. Let's go ahead and get the heavy duty ones. Well, that's not good, I don't think. The new spring is much shorter than our old one that was broken. But if these are super weak, they might compress a ton, maybe. I really don't want to put that in there if I can't return it. What to do. Well, I went ahead and I threw the spring in anyways. I guess moment of truth. Let's see what the rating will do anyways. Alright, well, that's not gonna work. It literally did nothing. It actually made it sit lower. Oh, that sucks. Because it takes like 4 days for me to get coils in. Well, unfortunately, that's some bad news, but that's the way she goes sometimes with projects like this. Win some, you lose some. I've lost twice now on this thing. But we did drive it out of the garage, and I said that would happen. Did it like it? No, not necessarily. The good news is I'm one step closer to getting this thing on the road, and we did get it out of the garage. It drove on its own power out of the garage. So hey, you know, it's a win-lose type situation here with it. But oh well, I'll get the parts ordered so that way we can do some suspension upgrades. I gotta finish the intercooler piping, which is like quick, easy job to get that knocked out. So small things. So that's a wrap, guys. Hope you enjoyed watching this episode. I had a blast working with Jeff on the car and getting the fabrication part pretty much wrapped up and being able to drive it out of the garage. So with that being said, we'll see you guys next time.